Hello and welcome back, Eddie Radosovich. George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. And as you can see there, instant reaction. Oklahoma gets the news that I think everybody's been waiting for around these parts. It went here and there and everywhere, but at the end of the day, Oklahoma does pick up its third commitment of the day, the third one being maybe perhaps the biggest one, the number one ranked player in the portal. Currently, John Mateer announces on Wednesday night that he will attend Oklahoma in 2025, joining Ben Arbuckle, as you see there, in conjunction with One Oklahoma, who did a lot of work to secure this commitment, George. And let's just get into it. John Mateer headed to Oklahoma.
Yeah, look, it was always Oklahoma for John Mateer. It always made the most sense. Now, I think we all kind of sat here and were like, is this thing really going to happen? It looks like this has been in the works. That video clearly shot who knows when. But I think that, look, it's a props to Oklahoma getting this done so quickly. One Oklahoma especially played a major role in getting this done. For all the people out there saying that Oklahoma is poor, they don't have the money, this guy was expensive.
Sure.
This was, obviously he wanted to come here because of Ben Arbuckle and wanting to play for his offensive coordinator that he had so much success for this last year at Washington State. But that doesn't mean it didn't cost some money. So, and yes, you had to hold off Miami.
Sure.
Miami was very close to trying to get, they were trying, but very close to getting John Mateer to come on a visit in the next few days. So for Oklahoma to hold off Miami, who we all know has a lot of money, I think says a lot about the collective as well as just the recruiting job that Oklahoma has done really in the last 24 to 48 hours.
Certainly sounds like Deion Burks also played a little bit of a role in this and getting John Mateer to commit. Let's just jump all the way back into Wednesday morning, though. The news that he had made it to campus. He made it to campus on late Tuesday evening, got picked up, obviously made his way down. Sounds like he went to breakfast with some guys reportedly this morning. And then Giovanni Gibson is also the name that committed on Saturday or on Wednesday, the Arkansas Pine Bluff wide receiver, 6'3", 205, 70 receptions. Just over 1,200 receiving yards last season for Arkansas Pine Bluff, as well as Keontez Lewis, the wide receiver from Southern Illinois. So just kind of building on top of that, we had talked about yesterday here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, just in terms of building momentum. It seems like that is there now.
Yeah, look, we've all been saying it now for the last week or so is, what is the plan for OU in the portal? Why is it taking so long to get some of these commitments? I don't know if this was the plan all along, but it sure looks nice because I think that there was some idea of they thought they were going to get John Mateer. They felt confident about that. We've been reporting on that for weeks now before he even got into the portal. All of a sudden, he gets his visit in very quickly, and Oklahoma already had a bunch of guys set up to come the exact same day as John Mateer, or leaving the same day or arriving the same day as John Mateer. They have the big offensive tackle from Georgia Tech, Corey Robinson, coming in tomorrow, as well as James Thompson, the defensive tackle from Wisconsin. You had all the wide receivers basically here. Keontez Lewis, Giovanni Gibson had just left yesterday. So you had all these guys lined up. Isaiah Satanga from Arkansas got in today, as well as Jaron Bradley, the wide receiver from Boston College. It all makes sense, right? Now it's all lining up where John Mateer is kind of this domino effect, and I think we started seeing that with some of the receivers. It's my understanding that Mateer had kind of told those guys earlier today on Wednesday, hey, get in the boat. Go ahead and commit. Like, we knew those guys really liked Oklahoma.
Sure.
I think Mateer kind of closed that deal for him, and now you're seeing the ripple effect. And you wonder, with some other guys coming in, I know Oklahoma wants to kind of have this portal class wrapped up here, before they leave for the bowl game on Monday on the 23rd. Could you see them kind of close the deal on a lot of these guys that are set to visit over the next few days? I think you could.
It's going to be interesting in the coming days as we find out more from John Mateer, obviously, about his commitment, his relationship with Ben Arbuckle. But you have to think that, Ben Arbuckle's been in town now for almost less than a month.
Yep.
He's gotten 2 quarterback commitments and certainly has sold the program in terms of what the vision is offensively.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even a guy like Deion Burks and some of these receivers selling them on sticking around or new guys coming in and that they can have success in the system. And I think you look at John Mateer, and I don't have the stats on top. I know you have the stats, but you would think that he could replicate a lot of that success here at Oklahoma with some of the athletes that they're trying to put around him.
3,139 yards this year through the air, 826 on the ground, amounting for 44 touchdowns. It led the country, obviously. He he stepped into a role, obviously, that Cam Ward left when he went to Miami. Made the most of it, most certainly now as Oklahoma brings him in. And it's going to be kind of fun to see what this thing looks like. Obviously, won't be here, formally until January as he, begins the process of, whatever that may be in the spring with Michael Hawkins.
Look, here's the situation, Eddie. This was a terrible season for Oklahoma, disappointing in a lot of ways. And we knew, weeks ago, this is a pivotal offseason for Brent Venables to reset maybe not reset the program, but, find a new spark, get some momentum, because 2025 is pivotal. They have to go win a lot of football games next year, probably, for Brent to keep his job. They need to maybe be in the playoff hunt, surprise some folks. And so you sat there and said, you got to nail the offensive coordinator hire. We'll see if they did that with Ben Arbuckle. It's a big risk, right? 29-year-old guy, but there's a lot of hope that he could be the next big thing as an offensive play caller. You got to go out and you got to get a big-time quarterback. They just landed the best one in the transfer portal. So you look at the way they're doing this, and I get it. Some people are like, oh, Southern Illinois wide receiver, UAPB wide receiver. OU's taking a gamble on some guys in the portal, and they have to, but they feel like these guys, they may be high risk, high reward. It feels like every single guy they've gotten so far, high risk, high reward. And so Brent's putting it on the line, right? He's putting his job, his future, his career in the hands of, a 29-year-old in Ben Arbuckle and a quarterback in John Mateer, who really was not highly recruited. Nobody really knew who he was, has a monster year this year. So he's given, but it feels like to me, Eddie, it's high risk, high reward, but it feels like he's given himself the best shot to have success next year. Now you just got to see how it plays out. He feels very good about the young talent that he has on this roster. That's why you're seeing them retain a lot of those freshmen and sophomores. That was a huge priority for Oklahoma. They feel like they have some really good talent that can develop into great players. You saw them keep a guy like Deion Burks, R. Mason Thomas, Kip Lewis, Robert Spears Jennings. They feel like they can build on that defense this year. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and pump sunshine and tell you, oh, yeah, OU's definitely going to go 10-2 and be in the hunt next year. But I do think that they finally have some good momentum heading into a huge offseason in which we're going to sit here all summer, all spring, all fall camp and say, what is this team going to look like? We don't know. And it could very well flop. But I do think you have to give credit to Brent in the program right now in terms of trying to go all in and taking some chances. I mean, they're taking some chances with these guys, but it's the spark that this program needed. Because the last couple of weeks, Eddie, it's been some grim.
There's been some dark conversations, perhaps darker than the ones that we had on the way back to Kansas City after the OU Missouri game this past year. I think that one thing that sticks out when you talk about John Mateer and Ryan Leaf joined our buddies Gabe Eichert as well as Teddy Lehman talking about this completion percentage, and it's something we've talked about with Ben Arbuckle's offense. Get the ball out, find an open receiver. And you look at the numbers this year, he completed nearly 65% of his passes, 224 for 347 for the 3,139 yards. It's a familiarity with the offense. You would think that as they get going in January during winter workouts, as well as, starting in spring ball, you can kind of hit the ground running immediately. And not to say that Michael Hawkins, we're not going to discount him as either, but I do think when you're talking about the idea of Brent and this offense and particularly this team going into next season in 2025, needing to win games immediately, there is some comfort there that you're going into it with a guy that has done this before, and particularly at a high level, albeit Washington State. You can talk about the schedule and everything that they played against this year in the comment section. I'm sure you crazy assholes will.
Yeah, no, but I think that's a valid concern.
Sure.
When you talk about John Mateer, you read the stats, you're like, man, this guy was great, and you watch the film, and you're like, man, he was really good. You have to consider the quality of opponent for sure. That's something that I would definitely say. I don't know if it's a red flag, but it's just something you're like, okay, you take it with a grain of salt a little bit in terms of what he did. But you're right. When you have a guy that's played in this system, understands it, and can communicate it to other guys, it's kind of like when they got Dylan Gabriel with Jeff Lebby, right? It became very easy for him to kind of maybe communicate that to the other guys that haven't played in the system, and it just makes it a lot easier transition. I still think Michael Hawkins can be really good in this system. And the reality is, Eddie, there's a chance they're going to need Michael Hawkins at some point, maybe next year.
Sure.
And when you have a guy like that at backup quarterback, you feel really good about him. So I'm still curious to see if they maybe try to add another quarterback, just because, You only have 3
Yeah.
right now in John Mateer, Michael Hawkins, and Jet New, and it's pretty clear that Jet New is not going to play next year. At least that's not the plan. Maybe they try to add another transfer in there just to have some more guys throwing the ball around at practice. But but Eddie, I think overall, though, this is great news, right? This is great news about John Mateer in several different areas.
It's the news that you absolutely had to have.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's why we sat here, to be candid with everybody. We've felt confident about this for a while.
Sure.
But when
behind
it starts,
the scenes, it's been one of those things of, don't worry about it.
It's almost like it was too much confidence.
Right. And that makes you start thinking, okay, what am I missing?
on?
What's happening behind the scenes? And
Why haven't they announced
And then
it?
it gets to about 5 o'clock today, and it's like, okay, well, this has been an all-day affair, and what's actually happening? But the good news is Oklahoma does pick up its 5th commitment out of the transfer portal so far. We talked about Giovanni Gibson, who's really kind of interesting. And another kind of situation when you look at the Arkansas Pine Bluff, not a very good football program, not a very good football team, but the contribution and the numbers that he did put up, and with the frame that he does have at 6'3", 205, you can imagine that lining up against it with a Jaden Gibson or with a Deion Burks or whoever, Keontez Lewis, as well as Jacob Olbrich, the punter from Kennesaw State, Luke Balenko, the offensive tackle from Stanford. So that's your 5 right now.
Yep.
We talked to Brent Venables on Friday of last week just about how many numbers were they going to take. And, he had thrown out the numbers 8 or 12, somewhere in that
I think it's going to be
mix.
around 10. I think it's going to be around 10. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see 2 more wide receivers. Which 2, I'm not sure. I know that they've, talked to, 4 guys right now, Isaiah Satanga, Jared Bradley. Both those guys are on campus right now. They're trying to set up a visit with Jacksonville State receiver Cam Vaughn, as well as Devontae Ross from Troy.
And that's Devontae Ross is a guy that I think is somebody that if you could get him into Norman, and maybe this is one of the benefits of getting John Mateer into the program tonight, you can start developing something of a relationship. Get John Mateer on the horn. Get him to call Devontae Ross. Hey, come check out Norman. Just give us a chance, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think what you're looking at is 2 more receivers. I think they'll add 1 more offensive tackle. Corey Robinson is the name to watch there. I think they'll add a defensive lineman, and I think they'll add a tight end. Maybe an edge rusher if they find the right guy. I know they've been interested in a few guys. Maybe a linebacker as well, the Washington linebacker. I can't remember. Was it Kamori House?
Yes,
I think
and that was an offer that went out here on Wednesday evening, just within the last 2 hours.
Yeah, so maybe you add a guy there. But I think you're going to end up seeing around 10 to 12 guys that they add in the portal. And then, you could always add somebody after, the bowl game if somebody enters from one of these playoff teams that you want to get interested in, as well as you still have the spring portal that I wouldn't be shocked if Oklahoma's kind of active in that and maybe added a couple guys there too.
No doubt about it. Really good news, though. It's the news that, as you said, it's the news that we've been waiting for, the news that I'm sure a lot of Oklahoma fans have been waiting for, and it's going to be kind of fun to see how this thing goes now as John Mateer jumps in, commits to Oklahoma on Wednesday night. And, I think if nothing else, it was just good news that, hey, all right, you can still close this thing down, right? Oklahoma did a really good job of not only recruiting him, continuing to, stay in contact and then getting him to campus, and obviously not letting him get out of town without a commitment.
Look, these things are never a done deal, right? I think everybody just assumed this was a done deal from the start, and I think there was probably some truth to that. But look, Miami definitely made a very serious push for him and threw some money numbers that we had heard out there that are crazy to think about.
Sure.
So props to Oklahoma getting this done. And again, there had been a lot of talk the last few weeks of what's going on. What is the plan? What are they doing? You finally see it come to fruition, and so now you have some actual momentum heading into what is one of the biggest off seasons that we've seen at Oklahoma in a long time.
Really interesting tidbit too that you talked about. It sounds like Oklahoma wants to get this done here the next couple days before you go down to Fort Worth. Before they go down to Fort Worth, the team will be leaving on Monday to go down to start their Armed Forces Bowl practices down in Fort Worth, and then obviously you got a game coming up on Friday, December 27th against Navy. So once again, John Mateer jumps in, 3 commitments today, plenty of coverage to come on SoonerScoop.com, as well as right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. We'll be catching up with Josh McQuistion, as well as Kerry Murdoch for the unofficial 40 that we kind of delayed because we wanted this news to get out there and obviously have a little bit more to talk about than us just bitching and moaning that we're having to use all this tape to keep the university, just a hold. Had to go over to a couple of the gates over at Gate 1 today to make sure everything was over there. But need more duct tape, Jeffrey. Please send from Austin. So for George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. Good time to join SoonerScoop.com, $1, 7 days. And as we have said here throughout the rest of the entirety of the week, a lot more to come in terms of coverage from John Mateer's at commitment, as well as OU Hoops in action on Wednesday night at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina against Michigan in the Jumpman Invitational. Good win for Jenny Baranczyk and the women on Tuesday night. Yeah, really good win. So that's going to do it. Instant reaction here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. For George, I'm Eddie. We'll talk to you next time.